Going straight to Zoom. We're bringing in Emory Hunt in on Zoom. You can follow him on Twitter at FBallGamePlan, footballgameplan.com. He's the owner of that. The czar of the playbook, and he's also with CBS Sports as well. Emory, we've been talking about Joey Aguilar and the transition to the SEC, going from the Sun Belt to the SEC. And I was just looking at one of his games against Louisiana Lafayette. And I'm sure you probably, I don't know if you've watched that game or not. I'm not going to ask you specifics. But it's a roller coaster of a game, under 50% completion percentage, 20 completions, 236 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. It just seems like an emotional roller coaster if you're an App State fan. But what's going to be his biggest adjustment now that he's joining up with the University of Tennessee? Is it going to be learning the playbook or playing against the SEC?
Neither, in my opinion, honestly, guys. It's going to be mostly just flatlining his play. You touched on it leading into the question. I just think that that's the difference in Joey Aguilar, because what we saw from him in 2023 was a guy that was trending toward being draftable. And then this past season in 2024, it was a lot of hit or miss, up and down. It wasn't consistent. And that's going to have to change if you're trying to have success in the SEC, especially within this offense. It's about consistency. And that was the difference between a Hendon Hooker to Joe Milton, which is why you saw Hooker jump in and take over that role. I think if he can flatline his play, the best is yet to come, because he has that dual threat capability.
I kind of have an off-the-wall question, but ride with me here. What have colleges done quarterbacks a disservice by moving to so much shotgun and air raid at the college level and not doing more under center? Because that seems to be, when you talk about these prospects, the biggest thing. We have to see him under center. We have to see if he could take a snap under center. Why are colleges not maybe putting a little bit more emphasis on those kinds of fundamentals that they'll have to have at the next level?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. It requires a longer answer than what we have in this segment, but I will say this: I get frustrated when I'm watching college football, and everything looks the same. I grew up in an era where you got to see different brands of ball at different brands of regions, in different brands of conferences, and so on and so forth, into teams, right? So now you click on, a University of Miami game or a Bowling Green game, and they run the same doggone offense. Everybody's running the same thing. And to your point, I do feel like the team that will win a lot of games is a team that's going to zig while the other ones are zagging, because if you're running the same style of offense and subsequently the same style of defense, you're all recruiting the same type of players, and you don't really get a chance to be different. And that's why teams struggle when they run up against someone that kind of does things a little bit differently. Teams that maybe just are going to run downhill under center and run the football at you, they tend to be better than teams that are used to playing in the spread, and so on and so forth. So I agree. I feel like in order to get things a little bit different and, work on these little, soft skills for a player, you have to start doing things differently. But that requires the administration to not focus on winning championships and coaches doing, well, hey, we got to win games. So what's the best way to maximize our 120 team player roster than to do what everybody else is doing, which helps us get a lot of points, a lot of wins, and subsequently I can save my job.
You over at footballgameplan.com, you put out a draft guide every year, and I get it every year. And it's over 1,200 pages this year. So it is a beast. I know that Dane Brugler's is called the beast, but really yours is a beast. But with Cam Ward, you talked about areas of improvement, and you talked about how he needs to be much more anticipatory as a passer, which ties directly into that his timing has to be more consistent. How is that what path does the Tennessee Titans staff and his training throughout the offseason have to take to improve that, to really unlock that passing potential you talked about?
Well, for him is mainly, it's the play call, and it's the gift and the curse that he has such a great arm, because when you have that, you have the luxury of being a little bit late or waiting a little bit, or maybe not going to the primary read because you have a chance to get something bigger deep down the field. And when you see him operate with timing, it's impossible to defend because he has such a whip of an arm. He has great velocity. He has good arm strength. So if it's on time, you're dead in the water. It's that when he gets to holding the football long and trying to make a big play, instead of taking the profit that's right there or the profit that comes with playing on time, that's when you see him kind of get caught in the pocket, fumble a football or whatnot. But, I would say this for Tennessee is mostly just, making sure they just hammer home, hey, we got to get the ball out. We got to get the ball out. Even if you have to over coach that part, because we know the Cam Ward that you drafted is the one that you love, the one that does create off script, that is able to extend, that is able to push the ball vertically down the field on second and sometimes third chance opportunities. But if you want to, kind of hone in on the one area where he has to work on, it's just overemphasizing the timing. And this is the best time to do so. So it becomes dogmatic once you get to the regular season.
Do you think there is a good match or marriage between Brian Callahan and what Cam Ward wants to do in Brian Callahan's system? Do you have a confidence that Brian Callahan can pull the best out of Cam Ward and get him to that place in this Tennessee Titans offense?
I've always thought this, and I've always said this, saying talent supersedes system. If you're Brian Callahan, if you can't make Cam Ward work, that's a Brian Callahan problem, because Cam Ward is a fantastic quarterback, and he does things that can help enhance what you do. Prime example, and I always use this example, this is not a knock. So when we talk about Bill Walsh being one of the best football minds out there with the West Coast offense and what that has done for everything in football, right? A lot of the offense that we've seen since then has been built off his own personal philosophy and what he had been able to do with the West Coast offense. But when everybody try to implement the West Coast offense, it's like, well, I need this guy. Well, is Bill Walsh's offense the reason why it was successful? Or was it because he had Joe Montana, Roger Craig, Jerry Rice, John Taylor, Brent Jones, Tom Rathman, a great offense? Like, what was the real reason behind the success? So if you're Brian Callahan and Brian Callahan's scheme or offense, Cam Ward is the scheme, is the offense. He has to make it work.
We're on with Zoom here with Emory Hunt of footballgameplan.com and also of CBS Sports as well.
Well, Emory, man, great analysis there, man. One thing that came up in film, and I watched a lot of Cam Ward, and that is, man, he fumbled in the pocket a lot. Sometimes he lost the ball, sometimes he didn't. What was your perspective when you saw him in the pocket? He has great pocket presence, but I think he was a little overconfident in his ability to make plays outside the pocket. I'm a little concerned that may happen in the National Football League. So ball security was one of the things that I was looking to see. What were your thoughts when you watched tape?
Yeah, that was it right there, because a lot of it, man, it's doing too much. It's the same reason why someone like a Shedeur Sanders takes a lot of sacks, or a Cam Ward fumbles a football, or a Michael Vick or RG3 took a lot of hits. It's like, man, you could have saved yourself like 7 seconds earlier had you just got rid of the football. And for Cam, it's because he's so talented, because he was able to do certain things at Incarnate Word, and then subsequently at Washington State, and then at Miami, it built that callus to when he got to Miami. So I could still do this. I was doing this at 2 other programs. I could do this here. But as you go up in levels in competition, the reaction time shrinks a little bit faster. So, yeah, those guys in the Southland Conference wasn't going to be able to get to you in the pocket, so you could dance around, do all kind of things back there, do the kid play in the pocket if you want to. Then it got a little bit different at Washington State. And then at Miami, it definitely got a little bit faster. So I think for him, it's just being cognizant of the time in the internal clock of, I got to get rid of this, I got to get rid of this. Or if you're going to play, cavalier ball and hold the ball a little bit long, you got to secure it. You got to keep it up near your chest. At times he keeps it a little bit too low, and that's when things get hit. He may knock it out himself. Sometimes it works for him, and a lot of times it doesn't. And I think that's the area where ball security, number one, because not only if he recovers the football, it's not that he lost possession, is that it kills a drive. It could have been 2nd and 6, and now that fumble in the pocket that you recovered now makes it 3rd and 15. And so that's those hidden yards that end up costing you ball games, and he has to minimize those moving forward.
Outside of the free agent signings by the Titans at wide receiver, kind of break down, did the Titans do enough with Gunner at tight end, DK, as well as Ellick from Stanford? Do you think or project that those guys will potentially be starters initially, or maybe just kind of they bring them along?
Man, I'm excited about what they did in the draft because a lot of times we see these teams draft a quarterback and say, go make these dudes better. Like, bro, you can't make nobody better. Like, give me talent. And so when you got a Cam Ward, you saw them go get A.U. Manor out of Stanford. You saw them go get Deke out of Florida. Helm is a big underrated draft prospect because people are focusing on his 40 time when, always like, who your friends at? Where your friends at? Because, like, why would you go out there and try to run a 40 on a sprained ankle? I get, the toughness and want to fight through it, but you know how NFL teams are, man. They're going to look at this, he ran a 4.8. They're going to leave out all the context. You know what I'm saying? So he ran a 4.8, he's not fast. Like, we know you're faster than 4.8. So getting him was a big-time addition. Then you sign in Restrepo, which is a very good signing. It makes Cam Ward feel comfortable. But A.U. Manor is a catch-and-run guy. DK is a guy that can get deep down the field, who had a fantastic Hula Bowl, got the call up to the Senior Bowl and killed it there as well. So I like what they've done to supplement their franchise quarterback, because you got to understand how easy it is to make a guy successful when he has successful pieces around him, including the stable of backs that they have in Tennessee. So this team, based on what they've done in the draft and also free agency, the quarterback they signed or drafted, that raises the floor of the football team, this is going to be a competitive football team in year one, in my opinion.
You mentioned Restrepo. What are your thoughts being, not drafted and then the Titans actually, picking up? And what do you think his career is going to look like in the National Football League?
I don't care what the stopwatch said. I don't care if it said 5-3, right? Every time we watched the Miami game, this dude was getting open and getting buckets, we like to call it, right? Because he was just open, constantly racking up receptions. And if you notice where Ward was going in crucial situations, he wasn't going to the guys that are 6'1", 6'2". He was going to this short, slow dude, apparently, according to the 40 time, in Restrepo. And he was coming up big every time. I don't care he had small hands. I don't care he ran, didn't run the fastest. He got open. And he was making the big plays, and he was making the plays that were there to be made in those clutch, crucial moments. And so for me, I was shocked he went undrafted. Those guys, you kind of thought, okay, at worst, he'd go 4th round. But because he fell completely out of the draft and Tennessee, it made so much sense to go and grab him, I think that's a guy that can not only make the team, but have an impact as a rookie. And Tennessee did a lot of that in terms of undrafted guys, too. I mean, I looked at how they were able to grab Philip Bleedy out of Auburn, the defensive lineman. I thought he was outstanding. And the cornerback, Jamari Harris out of, Iowa, fantastic corner. So this is also why I count that as a part of the draft, because you only get so many picks and you only have 7 rounds. So how you go and attack undrafted rookie free agents, that can help round out your draft class. I thought Tennessee knocked it out the park from start to finish.
Well, 2 more questions here real quick, I guess. What grade do you give the Titans? Then I wanted to get your perspective on the Femi pick. Oladejo, the guy that went from UCLA in the 2nd round, kind of break down, because I thought he went a little higher than expected, but give us your perspective. You've watched all these guys, throughout their career, transition from linebacker to defensive end, and, it looks like the future is bright, at least, in minicamp.
Yeah, and the thing is, first of all, I gave the Titans an A for their draft, because again, when I always add the undrafted free agents for the draft, because that's a part of the draft class, especially now with how many of these guys, half the league is based on day 3 and undrafted free agents, more so than 1st and 2nd round picks. You got more of those guys than you do these high round picks that are in the league currently that are playing significant ball. And so the Titans did a great job in acquiring talent. And so when you look at Oladejo, what I liked about him is that he also played within the confines of a very good defense. So when you watch UCLA defense, everybody was playing well, right? But then you go watch him individually, and he was doing his 111. And then you go down to the Senior Bowl, and you're like, okay, now you extrapolate him from the defense, and you get to see more so of what he is as a individual talent. And he was one of the standouts that week in Mobile. So I love the fact that he can win with power. That, he's a little bit, I don't want to say stiff to where he can't move, but he's a little bit tight. But he does win with power. He does have some quickness off the ball. I like that he finishes well. He does well on both sides of defense. So in terms of playing the run, didn't also get after the quarterback. So I thought that was a really good addition. And for a team that needs, bodies and guys that can get to the quarterback and be disruptive coming off the edge.
Going with Emory Hunt, CBS Sports analyst.
When you look at Femi Oladejo, you talked about that he kind of showcased at the Senior Bowl a little bit more depth in his pass rushing bag than probably most people expected. Talk about some of the pass rush moves that you saw down at the Senior Bowl that were effective.
Well, a lot of times when you're in the season, you're going to do what works, which is smart, right? If they can't stop this, one-on bar, I'm going to just keep doing it, right? Because it's working for me. Freeney did that spin move from, Syracuse to the Hall of Fame. They couldn't stop it. That was his thing. He did it consistently, right? And so when you got to the Senior Bowl, a lot of times guys want to carry over what they did during the year to try to, I'm going to stand out because I'm going to instantly do this that I know I've had success with. Rarely do you see guys showcase a little bit different thing, a little bit of variety in terms of what they can do, because if it doesn't work, you don't want to get knocked for it. But for him, he showed that he can cross face. He showed that he can win with leverage. He showed that he can just completely beat you with speed off the edge and also convert speed to power. So it was eye-opening to see him do that while having success, considering the stage. Because, guys, if you're a fast guy and you go to the Senior Bowl or any All-Star game, you kind of want to show that you are a fast guy. You don't want to spend your time, let me work on the middle of the field. You saw how that worked out for Jalen Milroe, who was obviously and clearly working on footstep and footwork things while at the Senior Bowl, but because everyone that was watching didn't, kind of pick up on that, they were like, oh, he looks terrible. Oh, he doesn't look comfortable throwing the football. Well, he was working on footwork things, trying to overwork on that while he's there, but that's not the format for that. So it was good to see a guy like Oladejo be able to come in, showcase different things, but also thrive in the process.
How much, when I watch the film on Femi, I always see that it looks like he's still trying to adjust to life at edge between the years. There's sometimes where he overthinks a play or is keeping his eyes in the backfield. How much of that is just a habit that you have to break because he's so new to it, or how much is that's always going to be who he is?
Well, that's something that comes with experience. It's no different. I can speak from a running back perspective. If you have never been asked to block, and now you have to, get there and pass pro, and now they call different checks at the line, and you got to pay attention to see what hot, what is your hot. And so now instead of just understanding what's going on, to you, everybody look like they're blitzing. So it's like, I don't know who to pick up. Like everybody look like they coming through, right? And so now you really got to lock in and hone in. So for him, the more reps he gets, time on task he gets, the better and seamless that's going to be. And that's going to shrink that hesitancy that you talked about, that you saw. So especially when you got guys that are going from inside to outside, or coming from depth down to the the box, where you see like former safeties trying to play linebacker and trying to really stop seeing the game like a safety and more so like a linebacker that has safety athleticism. So for him, it's just time on task, and that's going to come with reps, which is why reps like he's going to get in rookie minicamp or doing OTAs or whatnot, those things can help shrink that space. The good part is he's not making that transition as he's coming into the NFL. He already has a foundation of playing, point of attack ball, as opposed to a guy that's going to have to make that transition as a rookie in the NFL.
Not that it means much, but I do love to have the stories of a guy that came in for a tryout, then gets signed to the main roster, or to the 90 roster, heading into all these camps and everything. And one of those guys was Tennessee local native from Thompson Station, TJ Sheffield from UConn. Just speak a little bit about what you know of TJ Sheffield and what he could possibly bring as a returner here at the next level.
Tough dude, man, like and physically and mentally, right? So you could see that. First of all, shout out to Jim Moore Jr. for what he has done up there at UConn. Those dudes legitimately play a tough brand of football. They will fight you and scratch you throughout the course of a game on both sides of the ball, which is why you saw, a lot of UConn prospects in this draft guide this year. But Sheffield is someone that I said is built like a running back and carries the ball rather well in terms with the ball, with it in his hands, which is what helps you as a returner, because he can, he doesn't get surprised by contact. He's breaking through a lot of these tackles and whatnot, and also has the shiftiness and quickness to make something happen. So when you have the return skills, it tells you, there's two different things, right? Kickoff return says more about your speed. Punt return says more about your ability to make guys miss. And so for him, when you combine that with the fact that he is built like a running back and his contact balance is what it needs to be, he's tough to bring down. He's someone that's going to find himself on the plus side of a lot of plays that we saw like a Khalif Raymond do at times when he came out of Holy Cross and found his way from the Giants down to, Tennessee.
Real quick, I know you had Shedeur Sanders as your number one quarterback coming out. I've watched numerous videos of you over this time frame, and I'm just interested, what were your thoughts about him compared to Dylan Gabriel when you were doing your breakdown? Because you're hearing conflicting messaging out of Cleveland or who looks better, mostly saying Shedeur, but there was a couple that, thought Dylan Gabriel looked better in camp so far.
Man, I'm so glad you asked that because you know what's funny about this whole thing? Because I was the one that told people about Cam Ward like 3 years ago. And everybody just forgot about that because every time I'm on the show, they'll ask me about Shedeur. And I'm like, well, I used to always preface by saying you can't go wrong with either one.
Right.
So, and then everybody was, then it became Cam was clearly going number one overall. And then everyone just asked me about Shedeur. I'm like, yo, both dudes are legit players. Like, you could be good. You could have two guys that are good at the same time. But to your question, what really stood out to me about Shedeur Sanders, and you could literally just turn on a Shedeur game in the fourth quarter and watch homeboy just get busy, right? Because they was either down or they were backed up, 90-plus yards, needed a touchdown to go to tie the game or whatnot, or they had to come back, and he was just checking those boxes. And you guys know football, quarterback play is mostly about situational football. Backed up offense, red zone offense, third down offense, end of game offense. And he just kept checking those boxes. How well do you play when things aren't pretty is what determines you not only as a football player, but definitely as a quarterback. And when you look at Dylan Gabriel, he's a good player, but he has come from, very good situations every step of the way. Big 12 ball or AAC ball at UCF. A lot of talent around him, Oklahoma, Oregon. Like, man, where's your struggles, right? And so now for both guys, honestly, in different ways, this is the first time they're actually having to compete. Gabriel in terms of going against somebody that is a dog, and Shedeur, first time he has to compete for a job. So who is going to rise to the top is probably determined by who has been through more ish than the next guy. And this guy has gotten sacked a lot, has been through, Jackson State to Colorado and has came out on top. So I think that's, to me, which is why you kind of saw him take control in a rookie minicamp setting. Because, again, I know people will say it's rookie minicamp, but at the end of the day, if he goes up there and throws 2 picks and, ducks some balls, that's all we would see, right? So he went out there and did well. So now it's just minicamp. Well, for him, he can't have those off days. Gabriel can have that, but he can't. And when you playing with that amount of pressure, that's why I was always a big fan of also Quinn Ewers. Imagine going out there when everybody in the stadium and in the media wants to see your backup. And all you do is go out there and lead Texas to the playoffs 2 straight years, one in the Big 12, one in the SEC, and you keep the backup on the side. So the mental toughness that's necessary for the position, sometimes you got to look past the stats and look past the these super created graphics that they have, or this person is top on the list in EPA and NAACP and ABC, like whatever they create, right? Like you look past all that, like, man, who's doing it when it counts the most and who's mentally tough? You can see right through a lot of that stuff. And I thought Shedeur, which is why I think he'll win that job in Cleveland.
Man, great stuff, Emory Hunt. We greatly appreciate it. And we'll have you on once the rookies in training camp get underway as well to catch up on what's going on with Tennessee Titans and maybe some mini camps and stuff that you stopped off along the way. We really appreciate it. Of course, footballgameplan.com, CBS Sports as well. Appreciate it, Emory.